Welcome to the Tokenized Economy. Here is today's explainer on the privacy paradox.
So, in our previous explainer, we dug into interoperability. You know, how all these disparate blockchain networks coordinate to seamlessly move value across the digital landscape. We figured out that for a global tokenized economy to actually thrive, these fragmented systems absolutely have to communicate. But here's the thing. Once you enable that frictionless movement of assets and data, you immediately smack into another massive hurdle. Today, we're shifting gears to a different but equally critical layer of this infrastructure. We're talking about privacy.
Section 1. Transparency by design. The starting point.
To understand where we're headed with privacy, we kind of have to look at where we started. At their very inception, blockchain systems were designed entirely around radical transparency. It wasn't a bug. It was literally the core feature. Under this original architecture, every single transaction is completely visible to the public. If you move an asset, boom, the entire network sees it. The state of the ledger is shared among all participants globally in real time, and you can perfectly trace every single piece of financial activity right from its origin to its current destination. There are absolutely no shadows here. Everything happens in broad daylight.
And there was a good reason for this. In these early crypto models, trust was essentially crowdsourced. You didn't need to trust some monolithic bank or a central clearinghouse to tell you a transaction was valid, right? You just needed to trust your own eyes and the underlying math. Because everyone could audit the ledger, no one could cheat. It creates a fascinating system where trust is derived entirely from visibility.
Section 2. Why this becomes a problem. Financial markets operate differently.
Now, while that radical transparency works incredibly well for open, permissionless networks like Bitcoin, it hits an absolute brick wall when it meets Wall Street. As it turns out, traditional financial markets operate quite differently. For institutional players, complete openness is a total non-starter. Just imagine a major hedge fund or a massive global bank broadcasting every single move to their competitors in real time. It would destroy their alpha instantly. Institutions literally cannot afford to expose their open market positions or give away their proprietary trading strategies, and they definitely can't reveal their counterparty relationships or leak highly sensitive client data to the public. It just doesn't work.
But here's the catch. While these institutions need absolute secrecy to protect their business interests and their clients, they simultaneously need the exact opposite: absolute verification, strict auditability, and flawless regulatory compliance. Regulators still need to know the rules are being followed to the letter, even if the general public can't see the actual trades.
Section 3. The core tension. Transparency versus privacy.
This brings us to our core tension, which is honestly the structural tension at the very heart of modern digital finance. We've got these two opposing forces, and they're both absolutely necessary for a functioning tokenized economy. It's a fundamental balancing act. On one side of the scale, transparency enables trust and verifies the math. It ensures the whole system is fair and solvent. But on the other side, privacy protects the participants, their proprietary data, and their competitive edge. In a perfect financial system, you desperately need both.
So how do we actually deal with this today? Well, traditional financial systems solve this paradox by simply building massive walls. They restrict access to the system entirely, they introduce highly trusted intermediaries like clearinghouses and prime brokers, and they tightly control exactly who can see what. It's a completely walled garden approach to finance. And sure, it solves the privacy issue, but it creates immense friction, huge delays, and these major centralized points of failure.
Section 4. What changes in tokenized systems? The on-chain reality.
Let's look at what happens to those walled gardens in this new digital environment. When we digitize real-world assets and move them on-chain, those old walls just disappear. In tokenized environments, we're facing a completely new paradigm. Here, data is often shared openly across a wide array of participants. Transactions are recorded immutably on a shared distributed ledger, and all those state changes are visible to anyone interacting with that specific smart contract. So the traditional method of just hiding data, it simply doesn't work here. And this brings us to the ultimate paradox of the entire tokenized economy. If traditional finance relies heavily on secrecy and blockchain relies entirely on visibility, how on earth do we merge them? How do you verify something is true without revealing the actual information behind it? Well, here is the absolute breakthrough: zero-knowledge proofs. A zero-knowledge proof, or ZKP, is a cryptographic method that allows one party to mathematically prove to another party that a specific statement is true without revealing the underlying data itself. It's practically magic, and it fundamentally rewrites the rules of how trust can be established in a digital realm. So, what does this actually mean practically? In a financial system, it translates to proving a user is eligible to trade without ever revealing their actual identity to the network. It means proving an account has a sufficient balance to cover a massive block trade without exposing their total portfolio holdings. Think of it like proving to a bouncer that you're legally old enough to enter a club, but the ID you hand them magically hides your actual birth date, your full name, and your home address. The bouncer just sees a mathematically verified yes.
Instead of an all-or-nothing approach, this introduces a revolutionary new model for global finance. We're not talking about full transparency, where everyone sees everything. And we're not talking about full opacity either, where no one sees anything and you just have to blindly trust some intermediary. Rather, we get selective transparency, backed by verifiable, ironclad mathematical guarantees.
Now, why should you care about this? Because without this mechanism, major institutions are never going to bring their trillions of dollars of assets on-chain. Zero-knowledge proofs finally enable the world's biggest players to participate in shared public systems without having to compromise their strict requirements for confidentiality, regulatory compliance, and controlled, targeted disclosure.
Let's zoom out for a second and connect this to everything we've covered in this series so far. Remember, smart contracts define the automated execution of an agreement. Custody defines the secure control of the digital asset. Settlement defines the final state transition of ownership. And interoperability defines the coordination between different ledgers.
And now the final missing piece of the puzzle snaps perfectly into place. Privacy defines exactly how information flows within that entire system. It dictates who sees what, when they see it, and exactly how it gets verified.
Let's actually compare these two paradigms side by side. In traditional systems, trust is heavily mediated by middlemen, visibility is manually controlled by centralized silos, and verification entirely depends on trusting those intermediaries not to make a mistake. But in tokenized systems powered by zero-knowledge proofs, trust is derived from pure cryptographic proof. Verification doesn't require full visibility. For the very first time in financial history, strict confidentiality and undeniable trust can seamlessly coexist.
This is a big deal. It's not just a technical upgrade or some minor software patch. It is a profound structural shift in how humans transact, moving from trust through visibility, directly to trust through pure mathematical verification.
As these tokenized systems continue to evolve, we're going to see dedicated privacy layers integrated right into our core financial infrastructure. We'll see the rise of ZK-based compliance mechanisms that automatically satisfy regulators alongside robust identity systems that rigorously protect your personal data while still enabling absolute verification across global markets.
To wrap up today's explainer, financial systems have spent literally centuries trying to imperfectly balance trust, transparency, and privacy. Zero-knowledge proofs introduce a radical new possibility to solve this eternal paradox: trust without disclosure. It is the crucial building block that will finally unlock real institutional adoption of tokenized markets. Which leaves us with one final question to ponder. If mathematics can guarantee truth without revealing data, are we ready for a financial system where we can trust everything but see almost nothing?
Subscribe for short explanators on blockchain, tokenization, and financial markets. And share your questions or topics you'd like us to cover in the comments.